Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we'll be discussing the Sony A95L Master Series QD-OLED and the emotional roller coaster that has followed this display, this release, the reviews, the shootout. And I have none other than my boy, Stop the FOMO, on this evening. FOMO, how are you?
I'm doing great. Spears and Munsell Frog, I'm dressed up. I am ready.
So the reason why I wanted to have you on was we have many other videos between us that we have been working on. I just released the
Mhm.
A95L review, and the comments in the premiere and the comments when the video went up are vastly different. What I want you to discuss that in a second. But your journey with the A95L with an early release, an engineer's
Mhm.
firmware update, not being impressed with it, though it was still good, it wasn't shockingly good. The comments in
Mhm.
that video being from C3, G3, S90C, A95K are all like, yes, it's not that good.
Yes.
To two videos later being like, well, and then I did my video, we had the shootout, but the emotion surrounding this TV, I have never seen in all my years covering TVs. I don't think you've seen this. Not to mention, I think it's above and beyond the hype and what it really is. But speak to me about that very first discussion, that very first day you drove to Best Buy and called me and said, "Hey, are you free tonight?" And I said, "Why?" You go, "I'm picking up the A95L right now on the back of Best Buy." Talk to me about the comments in that very first video.
Well, it was crazy because, well, first of all, picked up the TV. Apparently, these TVs were released early because they were sent to Best Buy early as demo display models. Best Buy didn't, I guess, label them correctly, labeled them for sale. I
Oh
bought
my
it, so
God.
there are a bunch of Best Buys that don't have a display model apparently. So anyway, it was not supposed to be sold, but it was supposed to be inventory for them to send to all the Best Buys for prep and display. I pick one up, I take it home, and we're all excited, right? Twice the brightness of the
Yep.
previous model. So the previous model was close to 1,000 nits. What, 2,000 nits? Because as we know, nits, you want double the brightness, you go twice as many nits. So in this case, I'm like, oh, no way. So we plug it in, and disappointment of disappointment. The G3 was brighter in HDR10, and the tone mapping wasn't working right, and only Dolby Vision did it come close to matching. I'm like, this is like the A95K. I mean, it's not that much better. And the people who are watching me unbox it, like, oh, there's something wrong. Maybe this firmware needs to be updated, whatever. But right there, the S90C guys were like, yes, the S90C
Because that
is
was your biggest pick. The S90C was your value
yes.
OLED. So
Yeah,
what I
it's
love,
it's the equivalent of the S95C. I had the S95C up there, 77-inch. So anyone who bought the 77-inch S90C essentially got the performance of the 95C at the 77-inch size, right?
yeah,
And so we had the S95C up with the G3, and then we had the A95K or A95L, and it just wasn't hitting all the cylinders that we expected to hit as this amazing hype. And so, very disappointing live stream in the sense that it might be have been slightly better than 895K, but it was definitely not the same level as the G3 or the S95C as we saw it. And the relief, you could hear the people just cheering, the S95C fans or the owners, S90C owners, and the A95K owners who are like, well, maybe even if I wanted to upgrade to this larger size, maybe I should wait anyway. And then this is when, behind the scenes, Sony attempted to reach out to you and me to tell us the firmware update isn't ready. The
so
firmware isn't ready. You got the
so
wrong firmware.
the way it was put
And
to me was it's not ready to take out of the oven yet. But what's so interesting about
yes,
the comments in that live stream about what we do is we did the G3 together. We were the first on the platform. We did, 24 hours together watching the
right.
S95C and the G3 way before anybody else. And people took that and said, okay, I'm buying one or the other. And then the S90C was kind of your pick. What I love is that in the comments, or even the A95K, they're thinking, FOMO's my guy. He told me S90C. And they think that that means that's the last thing you're going to see for the rest of your life. And that's the TV you're going to stay with.
Right.
So all you heard in those comments, guys, if you want to go back and look at the stream, it's like, thank you, FOMO. I got the A95K on sale. It's
Yep.
amazing. And then you call me, we talk, we did it, and you're like, you know what? I think we were gonna do that tech therapy video on it. Well, we did do it. We actually, hold on, let me say that. We did do the tech therapy. We had to redo it because you're like, I think this firmware update's gonna change things. But
Oh wait, no, I think my TV is broken. Remember?
Oh, so you went get a
They said
second one.
no. They
Yeah.
go, you got a bad panel. There's no way it could look so bad. You know, the tone mapping wasn't working,
Yeah.
the advanced contrast, nothing was
Nothing.
working properly. Just no change. I go, you know what? Just in case, let me get a second one. I get a second one. I update the firmware on the second one just to see, you know, or I update the firmware on the first one. The second one has no firmware updates. We want to compare the two to see, and there were improvements. Actually, the improvements were actually pretty significant. Suddenly, it was slightly brighter, not a lot, not twice as bright, but slightly brighter than the G3, which is great. This is what I had hoped. The So for the first time, Sony was able to get slightly brighter and preserve its gradient detail, which it didn't do before. Before, it had to bring the brightness down to do it.
Yeah.
This time, it got the brightness up and it preserved the gradient detail, which was like, okay, this is the A95L I've been waiting to see. And at that point, people are, you know, they're like, oh, maybe it is pretty good. Wait, let's wait till the shootout. It's like, you know what? It's not, and I said it's not calibrated. Maybe once it's calibrated, it'll come down. And people are like, A95L cannot be so good. I mean, because you know, people have already committed to either buying a different TV or they just bought one, A95K or
Yeah.
whatnot, and they're secretly, so those who haven't bought want the A95L to do really well because they have the budget set
Of
aside
course.
for it. Those who bought something else and are they're outside the return window or they're within the return window, I need to know my return window is ending, and so
So
they have to wait for the shootout.
so they have to wait for the shootout. But now, as we're on, probably I think you did 3 or 4 of those live streams. By the time you got to your last one, I think we had had a conversation on my channel before the shootout. We had already kind of established that it was not a bump, it was a big jump, and we'll see how it competes against the other two. But to your point, right off the bat, it created that uneasiness. And right, I'll
Mhm.
tell you now, the resentment part of this video, coming out of this, it's getting a Sony has a Samsung type love hate thing happening in the comments have yet to see with my video yesterday and with our coverage of it in the shootout. But the resentment part of it is going into what we're talking about. It was late, though there wasn't a release date, like a video game. That's part of the comments I've been dealing with. This thing's late. It should have been disqualified. Why was the shootout pushed back? It's not. It's if the now look, if the TV came out in January, it wouldn't have been in this shootout. But you can't have a shootout without all the flagships present. And for your
Mhm.
information, Panasonic is invited. Everybody in the comments, they are invited. We could have imported one and
They
had
are free to send the Panasonic in, but
same
we
with Philips.
can't just buy it from a retailer because from
They
Europe,
don't have
it's a
them.
different
Yeah,
voltage. I mean, it's everything is different, right? Buy from
absolutely.
Asia, it's PAL, whatever. You need to have it at least designed, and they do have a professional division somewhere in the USA,
Of
but it's
course.
up to Panasonic to allow us to do it.
Yeah, and we'd
And
love to see it. But the
oh
resentment
yeah,
part of this
well, you saw how close the G3 came.
yeah. So the
Panasonic
resentment
maybe would have taken it. Mhm.
so the resentment part of this FOMO is right away, people couldn't wait, which I understand. They see the hype between all these because think about it, it's three TVs, S90,
Mhm.
S95, and G3. If we're comparing those three, people got tired of waiting. It was supposed to be out in July, August, now September. Now, then they didn't want to wait for the shootout. Same with CES last year, where they couldn't wait for the
Mhm.
announcements. They grabbed the A95K. So I think people are really tired of Sony not releasing these TVs in a timely manner. And I've had people in my comments say they should have been disregarded or disqualified. It's a cheat,
Well, okay, so actually,
like
I
steroid
think
use.
it's the same. I think it's the same group. Those who are quote unquote tired of waiting for Sony are the same ones who don't want them in the competition for whatever reason. But I
Yeah,
think primarily the belief, the theory is if Sony A95L doesn't make it, S95C may win. because, well, now it's the best QD-OLED against a G3. What chance did the G3 have, right? So yeah, I was very surprised that people didn't want to wait for the Sony for whatever reason.
So what do? We go outside and like pop the tires on one of the trucks, and then Samsung doesn't make it either. Then hopefully the Hisense wins.
Or no, or pull an M wave where the S96 just doesn't turn on.
Ends up behind me. Put banana peels on the loading dock. Oh my God, they got hurt outside. So Sony had to be there. And I do understand, again, people's resentment because it's coming out late. It's going to be more expensive. I get that. But the emotions going into the shootout were all over the place. Now, walk me through the shootout and walk me through a little bit of what we talked about. The controversy wasn't surrounding the A95L. It was surrounding the S95C and G3. So it's really a moot point. To me, the A95L won by a pretty wide margin. And it was
let's introduce controversy.
Let's do it.
If we were to score it as before, meaning prior years, maybe the S95C would have won. The A95L was put over the top because of the subjective preference section. Ironically enough,
which we thought was going to hurt them.
We introduced that for the Samsung. And this year happens that Sony pulled its own Samsung. Extra sharpening, extra processing, inaccurate elevation of brightness in some scenes. It did not match the reference. The S95C matched the reference better. I mean, I was there before the shootout, going through the scenes with the calibrators. I was like, wait, this means the S95C actually more accurate. I do like the A95L, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would have chosen it if it wasn't for the reference monitor. But having the reference monitor, I have to say, if this was objective, S95C and G3 beats the A95L, and classy. Everyone was like, yeah, you're not wrong. The question is, what will the judges think, right? And the judges nailed the Sony for that. Some judges gave it a pass, but some did not like the Sony, and the G3 won in those upscaling where, wait, what's the Sony doing? And it's not just upscaling. They did that extra sharpening in every scene, but some scenes is not as obvious. In the dark scene, 1917, he's in the shadows, you start to see him, then he has his jacket, and you have the
lapel
collar, lapel, slightly brighter on the Sony, but the reference was not. S95C G3 matched the reference perfectly. And I was thinking, how ironic is that? We added subjective preference because many S90 or Samsung fans were complaining, you got to have more subjective things there because HDR impact, things that the reference monitor didn't do well. Ironically enough, it actually helped the Sony push it slightly over the top. So you never know what you're going to get when you improve, I would say, the scoring to reflect real world content that people also want to see beyond just that pure benchmark.
And I think that's what people aren't understanding. They think it's the way it was, where it was purely accuracy or purely a calibrator's dream. But I thought, and you thought, that the LG and the Samsung would perform much better out of the box. But then with me reviewing it and spending a couple days with it, even the calibrated version, I was shocked that I didn't feel the need to even leave the calibrated presets because the standard, the vivid were so hot and so vibrant that I was like, damn, even my shirt was a different color. Even I was thinking, I don't want to wander out of these presets. But like you said, it out Samsung the Samsung. And it almost did, it delivered in a way that I think the out-of-the-box people will be very happy with because they're like, wow, that's really vibrant. And I had to keep almost reminding myself that I was reviewing a QD-OLED. It didn't feel like a Sony at all in those other presets, other than the professional preset and the custom presets that we did for the shootout. Now, I reviewed two. I reviewed an out-of-the-box on the wall and then the actual champion. So coming away from the shootout, going into my premiere video, which you hung out for, we had a couple hundred people in there. And we talked after. The video did great. And you're like, did you see that that was all people that just bought the TV?
Yeah, and the people who watched it were like high-fiving. I love this TV. How about you? It's coming tomorrow. It's like buyer affirmation. Yep.
It was all love. And then you're like, so it was right after the video aired. You're like, just wait for the video to go up. And it was up, and it is the Wild West over there. I encourage you to watch the video, go into the comments. It's everything from my Samsung destroys this. It's not close to you can't trust YouTube to Sony's a cheat. Like it's a steroid thing for Sony in a way. Like they cheated. They used the extra enhancement. It was all these
Which they did, and they got nailed on. They did. If you look at where Sony lost, it was where the enhancements did not please the judges, right?
which kind of showed I thought the validity of the testing, meaning that that's what they're there to figure out. He said some liked it, some didn't. But the
And remember, we
emotion,
predicted before the actual outcome. You guys asked me who's going to win. I said the Samsung because I thought it was slightly more accurate. So I was already
yeah,
expecting people to downgrade the Sony more than they did. So, I already called it. I already saw it.
yeah.
And enough judges liked what Sony did. So, you can't really say it's a setup because it actually pleased very critical viewers. Now, if you said it was me, the guy, Homo likes everything. Okay. But you got judges
What did
like,
they say about me?
oh,
It's got love everything.
oh, like he likes everything, right? Like, oh, he likes TCL. Doesn't take much to please that guy. So, and
Big black and white
you
TVs,
guys,
man.
and people have to remember what was it that Classy said at the end? He was like, out of the box, it looked like all three TVs got together and said, let's make them all look alike.
Yeah, they
So
hung
if
out.
you're
Yeah.
not planning to calibrate, right, and just watching streaming content, other than upscaling a little bit, right, where the Sony does have an edge, but if you feed it the same high quality Blu-ray, they really do look very close, very close. And without having them side by side, you'll be hard pressed to even decide which is which. They're that close. There is no losers here.
So for
And
me,
yeah, people want to have a winner.
they do, and that's the thing is. So once I was done with the shootout, I'd already spent 2 full days with it. We spent hours on stream with it, and then I spent time with it. Pacific Rim, movies, gaming, Jen's content, not Spears and Munson, where
Mhm,
everything looks equally good. And I was blown away. I mean,
mhm.
to me, my favorite TVs are the Z series, Z9, ZX, Z2.
Yeah.
This beats it, in my opinion. It's only 4K, it's not 8K, but it had a very detailed look. It's very clean. And I have no brand loyalty. I mean, I don't care who wins. I don't care if Zenith jumps back in the game and is like, hey, here we go. We have an OLED. It doesn't matter to me. I root for them all. And we know people at all the companies, by the way. And
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
congratulate them when they win. But I really saw, especially since I wasn't comparing it to anything else other than the TVs around the room. I mean, it was the most one-sided review where I had very little I could say against it, other than the fact that I was hoping brightness preferred and gradient would change a little bit, which is still nothing. And I wish it was larger. That was
Mhm.
really it.
Yeah.
Even the gaming options and the UI. But that leads me in, FOMO, to the resentment part. It has a lot of 2024 TV aspects to it. The rest of the lineup doesn't have. The UI, the gaming features they've added, that's going to give FOMO to everybody that bought a Sony this year. I don't care if
Yeah.
you bought an X95 and A80L. The minute I put those panels up, they're like, what the hell is that? What is that? How come Netflix is kind of hovering? So I thought that part of that is what created that resentment and that FOMO again. Tell me a little bit about your experiences with the TV. Now that you've really settled in, how do you feel about it? I mean, are you as impressed with it as I am since you've spent all this time with it and you've had the A95K since its launch?
So if it was only Kaleidoscape Blu-ray content, my test material, honestly, I wouldn't swap out my S95C. They all look that good, and especially the Sony A95L and S95C, high quality content, indistinguishable, right? But because I watch a lot of college football, NFL, YouTube TV, sports content, you guys see my comparison videos. The Sony does take a step above both the other TVs. And so now I'm replacing the S95C because for my use case, the Sony serves as a better reference. Now, when I compare sports content, I have a reference that stands above the S95C. And it has Dolby Vision, so I can compare Dolby Vision to, G4 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's that one little feature that I use so much, which is streaming low quality content. YouTube TV, we all know it's just like a wild west of bad. They say
480.
4K, right? But is it really 4K? It looks kind of sketchy, man. It's like all weird textures, right?
Yeah,
Macro blocking everywhere or cable content or
yeah,
over the air content, Sony A95L with XR clear or the A80L with XR clear, but flagship. This is the one. And a lot of people, well, what about the audio? I love the audio, but I normally have it on closed caption just because I
yeah,
got so many things going on. I don't want it to be too loud. But ultimately, the A95L, that one extra feature is so good, which is its upscaling sharpening, and it cannot be turned off, by the way.
yeah,
That's what it is. And so Sony's walking in there, hey, either reward us or punish us. We are who we are, right? They
yeah,
own up to this is it. Just like Samsung. We're gonna make it a little bit brighter, we're gonna have it a little bit neon. You either mark us down or not. We own up to who we are. And it paid off for Sony. And so I personally love the A95L for that. However, for everyone else, I say look at the A80L. And you're like, what? Because it
He's wrong.
has the XR clear. It's like it's got that XR. No, wait. Maybe the A75L, right? It's got the XR clear. Exact
Hold
same
on.
image.
All right, so we're not scripted, obviously.
It's
Now
like
your
what
whole now your whole
A80L?
S90 crew is like, what the heck is he talking about? You're like in the A80L, you could care at all for prior to tonight. Now you're like, yo, here it is. A80L. Well, because
Yep.
the A80L,
Now S90C is still my editor's choice because crazy enough, it's $400 less expensive at a 65-inch size
yeah,
than the A80L. And at a 77-inch size, it's like 2300. If you catch it on the Samsung website, AAA members, veterans, all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, the price, okay, that slight improvement in upscaling, if it was the same price, of course, the Sony, right? It's just, but when it's $500 cheaper, it for most people, they're not going to notice it. Now, I have all these TVs, I'm going to notice it. And the connoisseurs out there, like Classy or yourself. Oh, actually, you have your own stories.
yeah,
Certain people, they know why they're getting the A95L. But if it's just for the extra clear, because you got a crappy source, well,
yeah,
save more money, get the A80L because your crappy source, the S95 or the A95L is too good for your crappy source.
yeah.
The A80L is a perfect match, and it comes in an 83-inch size, right? So,
So for
yeah.
me, what I thought the E95L, forget about streaming. And I think what's interesting what you say about streaming. We talked about using the Apple TV. It wasn't even about low bitrate content right away. The XR
Mhm.
Clear was also helping kind of a below average 4K content, that
Yeah.
ugly 4K streaming. So it's not just a 480p Columbo upscaling. It's upscaling, your Prime content, your Netflix, which is 4K, but maybe not the best. But the emotions,
Sharpening.
the sharpening,
The
yeah,
sharpening well, I think Phil said it best. I noticed the sharpening, but it wasn't too much. I'd be yelling if it was
especially
too
for
much
him.
sharpening.
Absolutely.
Yes. He
But enough,
noticed it, but it was just enough.
it was just enough. And I noticed that with the A80L, speaking of it, why I was shocked at how good it was. But that's where I do disagree a little bit. I thought it was clearly better than the S95C and the G3 in the same demo material that I've seen a million times. A million times, Jen's demos, movies I've seen were clearly, for me, clearer. And maybe also because their presets, even the calibrated presets, were so saturated yet natural.
Yeah.
They were accurate yet pleasing. So normally when I go into especially value electronics, I usually get out of that calibrated mode that they do for the
Mhm.
Z90K, and I go into it for one or two demos. In this, the minute I went into standard, I knew I had to back it off. Even live color was too strong. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, they really went hard with these presets. But the emotion surrounding the review, where does this hate come from for you? You looking at the emotions you see, is it because it's
I
expensive? I mean, I had people
the
say
best
they're not
example.
buying it because of the HDMI 2.1, which I get. Guys, believe me, I understand the HDMI 2.1. Rob explained it. They would have to have two SoCs. The price would be brought down to you. Samsung does their own. LG does their own, which also talks about FOMO. They buy panels from LG and Samsung displays.
Yeah.
They get their SoCs from someplace else. Of course, they're going to be last. They're not going to be first. So there's that. Also, for HDMI 2.1s, I use them more than most of you will. I wouldn't dictate my whole purchase on that, even though I think it's
Mhm.
important. But the picture quality for me is that good that I think it's even worth the price difference right now, if you have the money.
Yep.
But the hate and the love, but that resentment for Sony is really all over the map. Speak to me first about where you think the hate really comes
Well, I don't want to say it starts with, but rather the best reflection of that tribalism is ABS forums. It burned
from.
down after the shootout. They got a thread up, and moderators came in and started censoring people. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
and that's what we're talking about is the level of passion, which I love. Don't ever stop your
Of
passion.
course.
The
Absolutely.
level of passion for your purchases. I mean, you don't see this anywhere else. It's like when you buy your Nikes, and I have Adidas. You gotta beat me up in the middle of the street. Ah, hey, my high tops are better
I'm
than
gonna
yours,
kick you
right?
with my speakers.
Right. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When people have these TVs and one is awarded the king of TVs or whatever the award is, people melt down because they want their TV to. It's as if their decision has been undermined. Their TV is no longer great. Like overnight, you know what? The people have spoken. Your TV officially sucks.
It's garbage.
That's,
Garbage. Well,
that's
not only
exactly how.
so here's the funny thing. In the comments, it said right away, well, I guess the A95K is a piece of crap. Well, I guess every TV, well, what do you do? I'm like, do you want us to crown last year's over and over? We do new ones every year. And of course, they're going to be better. But just because you like something now doesn't mean the S90C isn't any good. So the
Right.
A95K, let's go on record, is phenomenal. The A90J is phenomenal. But the
And the
A95
G3 or the G2. What did Dwayne Davis say? You
to
know,
me, he's
I'm
like,
returning my G3. I want my G2 back.
so I mean, it's really the affirmation is strong, the want for that. So
Yeah.
again, we had people so happy that it wasn't that good on your first, I think, two streams. They're like, oh my God, yes. Then
Yeah.
right away, I had all my X93 fans because it does not have the clear, are like, oh man, I'm returning it. Because now they feel like it can't upscale at all, which isn't true. The X93 is still phenomenal. And now I have people saying, well, if the X95, it's just they don't all coexist with that. It doesn't mean one drops the other, but the hate Sony's getting mixed with the blind love, and then that resentment is right in the middle where people don't know what to do. They're like, should I buy? Shouldn't I buy? And also FOMO, because it's so late, they don't know if they should just wait a couple more weeks or a couple more months for the hype. Where are you even with that part of it?
So if you get, first of all, go with size. So if I've learned anything, let's say you have $5,000-$6,000 budget. Maybe you can get a 98-inch X90L. I mean, now
You're
with
throwing
this
all kinds of stuff
amazing
out there
large TV, right? I mean, you're 8 feet away from a 98-inch TV.
today. You're
No
just
OLED
making
is
it
going to
worse
work.
now.
And it's got XR clear, so you're sitting close. It
It
looks
does,
clear. It's sharp, and that's my point. Is I always tell people if you're coming from OLED, obviously you got to stick with OLED. But if you're coming from LCD TV, get the largest LCD TV that's in your budget first, because it'll still be better than your 5-year-old LCD TV.
of course. Yeah.
Then from there, your next upgrade should be an OLED at that size down the line. And then, we take it from there, right? And so most people have LCD TV still. Now, those of you who are in the OLED camp, now you got some decisions to make. You got A80L, X95K or A95K, A95L, S95C, S90C, gaming, not gaming. I mean, there's so many things to consider. But the best part is all of these TVs are amazing. Side by side, you'll notice differences, of course. But the differences require us to, one, squint, You guys see the judges, they're like 4 feet away, like this.
The
If you had them
dual,
sit where
yeah,
you normally sit, right?
yeah,
If you had them sit 8 feet away, it'd be a tie with everyone, right?
of course.
And that's the point, right? It's like no matter who you are, if you have to sit 8 feet away and all the TVs look the same, at that point, it's quality of life. How big is it? You know, is the remote laggy? Do you like Tizen?
Yeah,
Those things will bother you more than
yeah,
anything else that we talk about when it comes to image quality. Like, what is it you say? Sony cannot do a firmware update to make your TV bigger. So
yeah.
get the biggest TV you can.
Yeah, don't some people are like, "Yo, should I drop down to 77?" I was like, "What do you?" It's like, "No, don't go smaller." But I think what we said too is taking that word as bond to where now it's like the last person said this, and now you're like, "Uh-oh, I heard this here." The interesting thing though is us being the first to really drop it and talk about the A95L as much as we had. And then you have some others getting the TV. Then the shootout is there. There's still all this content and you have the winner. It's but that resentment of they're late, they're expensive, they're not worth it, and I already bought my TV. It's just a very interesting thing on what we do. Is I don't want to fire
Okay,
people up.
so this is what I love when we're on our live stream, whether it's mine or yours, right? We have all the regulars, we have all the new people, and what I love is the regulars. They all bought their TVs. The A95K, the S90C, the S95B, the S95C. They come in, and no matter what we say,
They
I
hang out.
love my S95, right?
Yeah, they're happy.
I love my S95C still. I love my S95B. It's still working. No one yells at them and says, "Oh, you're a loser. You're so 2022. You're so 2022," right? They just, "Hey, that's great." You know, they share their settings, whatever it is, because everyone knows next year will be 2024.
Of
And then
course.
every TV we have suddenly is now 2 years old or a year old or three
Yeah.
years old.
Mhm.
And then in 2025. And so what instead happens is we encourage you to love the TV you have. But
Always.
for those who are still waiting to upgrade or ready to upgrade or ratings, they have a X95J that just broke, like ratings just did, which is
The
only 2 years
longevity
old,
test,
and it
yeah.
literally failed to turn on, right? I
Yeah.
love it because one, it's a premium, it's near flagship, the X95J.
Yep.
It's only 2.5 years old. And it's not an OLED.
Mhm.
And the two OLEDs that did fail were only 1 year old, never even got a chance to burn in. The A80K stopped. It just didn't
Yeah,
turn on.
that
They
one
pulled the
that had
video,
a motherboard fry up, yeah.
right? Right. And then the G2 had these stripes. Thank heavens they have a panel warranty that they could
Yep.
replace the panel.
Mhm.
But either way, unrelated to burn it, right? And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, it's hold on to the TV as long as it works and love that TV because you're gonna have to replace it in the next 2 or 3 years, and then you'll be back in the conversation, and we'll be talking TCL, Hisense, Samsung, all over
Of
again. And
course.
then you're gonna buy the TV, right? You're gonna hold on to it 3 or 4 years. And when I say, and see, that's another thing. People get so mad when I say to them, you'll upgrade in 4 years. What happened to the days my TV lasted 10 years?
That's
Brian,
done.
your TV didn't even last 3 months and you had to replace it how many times?
11 times. But what's funny about what you're saying too, though, is you're telling them, love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. Stay with that one. But again, that fear of missing out and that buyer's remorse are so tied together. And the
It is.
A95L being so late, I know people saw, and this is what's funny. When people say to me, it's so late, I'm mad at them. But they choose when to release for a reason. LG and Samsung release first, which means that by the time the A95L releases, they're cheap in comparison. That's strategic.
Yeah.
Sony doesn't have to follow that. They want to wait till they're ready. Now we have issues with the way Sony have different sizes, but unlike the A95K, which released at only two sizes, now there's a 77. So you know there's not going to be a larger one next year. There's no talk of an 83 or a larger
Yeah.
one. I'd be shocked. So you can really be comfortable now either buying last year's A95K or this year's A95L. So the choices are fantastic. But the emotion surrounding this TV I've never seen. I've never seen so much hate. I've never seen so much love. And in that middle ground of resentment is everyone's mad it's expensive, which, let's be realistic, as far as TVs go, I remember when the Vizio P series was 4 grand, and that was a bargain in 2016, 2017. So the fact
I
that these are expensive, relatively speaking.
The MSRP of last year's P Quantum X, the last one, 2022, even though it was 85 inches, was
Yeah.
$3,000. 3,000 for the P Quantum X, even though it's 85 inch. I mean, look at this year, right? You got the U8K at 85 inches,
Yeah.
2 grand, QM8, and both of those will destroy the P Quantum X. And then the UX would probably make its way down to under 4,000 shortly. I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, so we're
things
not downplaying.
cheaper.
I guess my thing is we're not downplaying anyone's finances. If you can't afford
Yeah.
that, there's other options, even in Sony's own lineup. But they are expensive. But I do feel that extra processing they do deliver in that regard. I would feel comfortable buying it now simply because I want what I want. If I save $300 or $400 and have to wait 4 or 5 months, to me, I lose that time with it. To me, it's a safe
Mhm.
purchase. We also don't have anything coming down the pike that is revolutionary. I think we're going to see fine tuning for the next few years until we see like that blue OLED or the blue. What's the blue OLED that we're thinking about?
Blue phosphorescent
Blue
OLED in
phosphor.
2, 3
Yeah,
years. Mhm.
that I think mini LEDs are now at that larger sizes where they live. They live in either value or the dinosaur sizes. So we actually have a pretty good lay of the land now. But the A95L coming out the way it did, the fact that the big reviewers haven't had it yet or haven't even seen it yet, other than sneak peeks, the way they released their TV by not having CES, they did a
Mhm.
private gallery or private meeting in New York. I didn't see it first, even though Robert typically gets it 2, 3 weeks early. You saw it first. So it created this roller coaster for all of our viewers, where some made purchases as you were getting your TV. They were already tired of waiting.
Yeah.
And then the shootout. So I just think it's very interesting. The love, the hate, it reminds me so much of Samsung and
Yeah.
Sony's the passion about it, but also like the blind loyalty, the hate, and the resentment. It's what I want to talk about today. I know we're already 37 minutes in, so we're almost done. But I thought that was interesting for us, FOMO, is we're literally sitting back checking it out. And I will tell you the judges at the shootout, me, you, our group, Classy, KG, Brandon, Max, all these guys, not a single one of them leans over and goes, I love Sony. Or I'm a Samsung guy. Not a single judge, even the one that liked Samsung back in the day, was it Kenny?
Kenny.
even he was like, damn, yo, he just went to an OLED and he got a Samsung. But I know they think that we're here like taking money from these companies. It's not the case. We want the best for them all because the more they compete, the better we all do.
Well,
Without
look at what I chose. I chose Editor's Choice as a Samsung S90C.
in a QME.
I mean, my favorite, and people disagree. They like the Hisense U8K or the U7K, and it's a
Yeah.
great TV. It's just for my viewing tendencies and preferences. I felt the contrast in QM8 was better, but that appeals to me. There is no wrong answer. The wrong answer is if the TV doesn't turn on. That's the only wrong answer.
But
But
the
if the TV
narrative
is on, you'll love it.
but the narrative for you though, this is what I mean about the honesty part of it. The narrative for you was the U8H was a TV you championed and that you put against everything. So when the U8K came out, it's still very good. But everyone's like, I can't believe you betrayed Hisense. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, they're not one of my kids, you know? So I
Right,
think
right.
when they saw Sony win, they're like, oh, the fix is in, man. The fix
Yeah.
is in. Even though LG
The
won
fix
5
is
years running.
that's an ongoing theme still, oh, it's the Sony crew. Of course, Sony's gonna win and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's well, I guess at the end of the day, the person actually saying that, they want their brand to win. So it works both ways. I mean, if they were a judge, guess who's gonna win? Oh, Samsung. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point is you chose a great TV if it's not a Sony A95L. No one has changed that, but it feels like if a group of experts have crowned another TV as the king, suddenly it somehow diminishes your TV. There was no firmware update. It's still looking great to your eyes, but they want the world to know how great it is. And I think every judge had said the same thing. As long as it's one of the TVs on the bottom, right,
On the
an
bottom.
OLED,
Yeah.
I would be happy. And none of them were saying, well, as long as it's a QD OLED or as long as it's the LG
Yeah.
MLA OLED, right? Any of those TVs are phenomenal. And I hate to say this, most likely better than the TV I have at home. Judges aren't buying new TVs every year, folks.
Oh,
I
what
mean,
can we
they're
talk about
still
that?
running on 4-year-old. Some people still got a C8, a
Yeah.
C9. They
Yeah.
might upgrade to a larger OLED now. I mean, look at poor Kenny. He just got an OLED. Right? Finally, he's in the OLED,
I
right?
thought it was 10
But
years ago.
that's
Not last year.
and only because it's inexpensive. He got the
Yeah.
S95B because he got a great deal, not because he loves Samsung.
Yeah.
It's on clearance. He got an amazing deal on it, and that's what I always say is, "What is your budget? Get the largest TV that at least is slightly better than what you had before, but that size, that is the improvement your whole family will notice," right? Your wife's gonna say, "Wow, it's bigger." She's not gonna say, "I noticed the contrast is an additional 200%. I see the BT 2020 color space now," right?
The calibration tool. So what do you got?
Right.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
is that white point? Is that white point correct? Not gonna
Got his
happen, my
scope.
friend,
His
but
scope's over.
'cause, "Hey, is that TV slightly bigger?" She will notice that, but she will not notice anything else that
Oh.
won at the shootout, right? So that your whole family, not just your kids, or they're like, "Dad, can I plug in my Wii or I plug in my Switch?" It's either a yes or no. Yes, they're thrilled. Now it's a giant TV that they can play their Switch on. End of the story. And I think and I try to keep it grounded with that theme, but so many people are like, they're counting the decimal points, which is all that was in separated second and third place. And even the Sony, it was the image processing. If you don't like sharpening, Sony's dead last, by the way, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like
Yeah.
sharpening and you don't like that slight contrast enhancement, Sony is dead last to you. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Now, where are you with them releasing late? Does that bother you? Do you feel that gives them an unfair advantage? You think it's
I think
strategic?
it's you know what? It's the new normal. TCL, Hisense are releasing TVs out of the blue. Like suddenly the UX is
Tomorrow.
available, right? And the QM8, guess what? We got a 100-inch QM8 coming out. I mean, personally, as a reviewer, it helps to have all the TVs together so we could talk about it.
Yeah.
But if they spread it out, let's say forget 2024, 2023. 2023.5, 2024, 2024.5. They release it in October, December. If they don't care when they release it, you know what? It's just an adventure that we're gonna have to navigate because
Yeah.
I see TCL Hisense like, wait, maybe we can sneak this in and do something. You know
Well,
what?
I'm
Sony's
filming
doing it.
I'm filming the 100-inch U8K next week. But, yeah, I think you brought up a great point, though. I think what they do, I'll bring up your S90C video and our comparisons. People will look at that as if that video was shot yesterday. And let's say, but FOMO, you said you love this one. These these videos aren't organic. They don't just change as my attitude changes. All of a sudden, the G3 isn't less. I'm not. I was so excited about the G3, I was yelling at the camera. And I do feel MLA is the next step for them. But I think LG releasing so early in the year without anything backing it up. No Z3. The C3
Mhm.
was just kind of more of the same. Though I liked it, it was a bit brighter. It was very much more the same. QD OLED is really the next level, but Sony again hanging back, but delivering the way it did. And also what I'm saying about the UI, having more gaming features, having different
Mhm.
gaming presets shocked me. The game mode looks
Yeah.
better than it does on the A80L or the X95. So maybe
Oh,
that
oh, does it?
it does.
That's
Well,
great.
it's got 3 different presets. It's got standard, it's got first person shooter, it's got RTS, it
Oh,
has that now.
so the A80L's game bar doesn't do any of that, or doesn't even have a game bar.
It has a game bar, but it doesn't have extra presets. It just has game mode.
Ooh, I see. I didn't know that.
It's a whole new UI. It gives
Maybe I should pull back my recommendation now.
you I stopped watching that 25 minutes. I bought an 880. And that's the funniest part about emotion FOMO right there. If this was a live stream, someone's gonna go, I just bought it.
I
So
just
I
clicked
love
it. No, I'm not gonna cancel.
I love the passion that our communities, we have a shared community, the passion that that group has. I love that passion. I love their fire. I love the fanboys as well. I love that. But in this video, go back and watch that video, watch FOMO's videos. The fire, the hate, I don't think any of it is warranted. I think, but that's how it's, video cards, graphics cards, game consoles. But TVs are such a large purchase. I think in the end,
Yes.
any of those 3 or 4, S90, actually any modern TV, you're good with.
Hmm.
But let's just say this, if you want the absolute best of anything, you have to take that chance and buy when things launch. You can't hang back, but you are going to pay the price for that. And that's what the A95K crew dealt with last year. And it's still an amazing
Yes.
TV. With the A95L crew, it was dropped early. It's been reviewed by us. It's been in the shootout. I think it's the safest bet out there. It is very expensive, but I think you have to chill. Almost want you to
When
buy
you
an
see the
X90L for 100 inches.
when you see the A95K crew, half that crew is moving their A95K to the bedroom and ordering a 77-inch
Lisa,
A95L. And
Lisa.
Lisa, right? And I'm
Yeah.
laughing because I'm thinking, Lisa, what are you gonna do next year when it comes out with the
Yes, because it's in the bathroom.
A95M?
But I,
And that's what I love. It's just this passion for what we do.
yeah,
It's we don't join a country club. We don't buy new golf clubs every year, but it's still
no,
less expensive to buy an amazing TV every 2 years and enjoy what you have every 2 years. I think that's fine too.
I totally agree, man. And I think the resentment part of it is people are just frustrated. They waited. TV year is now. Well, so think real quick before we sign off. When would you think the TV year would officially really be done? Would you say typically in July that would be the last major release for us?
Because the shootout is supposed to so the shootout waits until all the flagships are out. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, you're gonna have, like, literally just 2 weeks ago, the Vizio Quantum Pro released, but, you know, I am sure
Zio.
Robert Zone is not waiting for that one, right? So
Yeah,
so as far as
hold on. The Vizio's coming.
hold on, Vizio's on its way. But the uh, I feel so bad for making Vizio my whipping boy, but I have to, it's so funny.
Gotta do it, yeah.
So, the shootout is the end of the TV review year because that's when all the best technologies have been out and are on track to be compared, right? Whether it's the
Yeah.
Sharp, whether it's well, we tried to get the QM8, but at least we have the U8K, the Sony A95L, the G3, the S95C. We do our best to put the shootout as a bookend to make sure that the judges and the calibrators get the best
Yeah.
technology to review because anything that happens after this is more like this low mid-tier variations of mid-tier, like the
Yep.
Sony A95 A75L,
A75.
which is
Yep.
just a right, yeah, it's a
A80L.
variation of A80, right? It's kind of stripped down a little bit, and but we don't really review those. It's more of recommend. Oh, you don't need a microphone, you don't need
Yep.
audio. Get the A75L,
Yep.
something like that. And so, for sure, as far as our audience, our season starts with the preseason, CES, and ends with our big game shootout at the end of the year. And sometimes it's July, sometimes it's August.
Yeah.
This year's October.
Yeah.
One day it's gonna be like, isn't Thanksgiving next year? I mean, next
Yeah.
week. We just finished the shootout.
Well, and that
You
caused
know what?
problems.
It happens.
And that caused problems too, FOMO, was that I think being in October, everyone looks at Black Friday now as, oh, is
Yeah.
it gonna drop? So so now it drags you further into the TV year of 2024. But I honestly think it's the safest bet going. So is the S95C and the G3 and the
Mhm.
S90. They're all phenomenal. I love them all. But the A95L to me was the clear winner. And like I
Yeah.
said in my video, it beats everything everywhere. And I do think they benefited from taking their time with it and spending. I don't think it was malicious. I think that they don't have, they're not going by anybody else's
Well,
time.
and it was clear, software had to be tuned because of the new
Yep.
MediaTek chip.
Mhm.
Pantonic never worked with it before. They had to make sure their, picture multiple sources was working with the MediaTek, and they had to make sure the Google TV had a chance, so it's compatible with MediaTek. I mean, it's not just you throw in the software and everything works. You got a brand new SoC that has to work with Google TV. Then Sony has to layer its image processing within the Google TV UI,
Yeah.
right? It that's a lot of tuning, and it's not easy. So
And the UI is
it's what
different.
happened.
And the UI is
Yes.
different than their other TVs.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, are we gonna have another A95 variant next year?
I think no. I think Sony is going to do what they did with the A9G, maybe 18 months. So, which is perfect, right? So instead of a 12-month cycle where exactly in October there's another A95, next year, if they wait a few months, they could announce the A95N, whatever is
Yep.
in 2025, and have it launch on time. So even if it's almost ready, they could take a few more months to get the software baked and then have it released exactly the same time as the Samsung S95D or E or whatever, or the
Almost let it laughing.
G5.
Almost let it laugh
Yeah,
it.
because it's only a few more months before it's
Yeah.
2025,
Yeah.
right? So October to October is 12 months. Add 6 more months, that's 18 months. Well, 6 months at the tail end of October, you're at February, launch in March, boom. So I think holding on to it for 6 months is totally worth it to catch up and to get to discount the A95L heavily. The only question many of you will have is, well, is the A95L still relevant if you have the S95D and the G4? And the answer is absolutely, because S94D and G4, they still need to get their image processing
Yeah.
up. It gives them a year to catch up.
Yeah.
Brightness is done. Now, that's another thing is I think as far as OLED's concerned, between the MLA and the QD-OLED, we have solved the brightness
done.
issue.
Yep.
All three TVs for sports,
Yep.
arguably gaming, you could tell me if it's bright enough for gaming, but I think for most people, we're there. And Sony can then take its time to tune it to beat the G5. And no one will know what's going to happen, right? So it's going to take some time off. They're going to suck on some batteries and do their magic.
Yep.
Get 18 months to do it this time. So I would not be surprised if it's an 18-month cycle for the next one, which it's so close to March release date. Why not?
And I think you said it spot on, and a good place to end it is I think the brightness wars for OLEDs are done. I think they don't need
We're
to
done.
be any brighter. That said, I do feel that Sony is in a great place to say, "Hey, I'm safe. You can buy me," or wait for it to drop.
But
Go ahead.
this doesn't mean that Sony won't release an A80 with MLA. So that's a whole different discussion. Their QD-OLED, the flagship, the
Yep.
Master series, that could be 18 months, but the A80 successor, it could still come out with an MLA. That's totally different because LG Display, yeah, they can make it available to, I mean, Panasonic's got it now, right? Everyone
Yeah.
has access to MLA.
Yeah.
Sony could have that in between A85L, right? And that could be the band-aid you guys have been waiting. Brian's like, no. Right?
So now you just actually, in wrapping up, you just illustrated my entire point of resentment. Now everyone's like,
83-inch MLA Sony.
You're like,
so now you got people.
At the 30-minute part, I bought an A80L. And then later on, I bought an X90L. And now he's telling me MLA, huh?
XR Clear with MLA at an 83-inch size. Sony, right?
I say
Would
Sony,
be?
Let's do XR Clear, MLA, QD-OLED at 8K. What do you think?
2026, my friend.
Well, FOMO, I think I've held you long enough. I appreciate the discussion. Again, everybody in the comments, enjoy your TVs. Keep your emotions in check. No, actually, don't keep them in check. Fire them off. Just don't get hurt doing it. Don't let it. And this is in the end. I want to say this. Don't let anyone else's comments. Your comments are what they are, but don't let anyone else's comments affect how you feel about your TV. If you want to fire off what you fire them off. But don't let it anyone else's comments. Ours, we don't make those comments, but don't let, as we said, if you're tall and someone's taller, you're not less tall. You're still tall, right? So you didn't just become a short person because someone's 7 feet tall. So the
Well,
A90,
you know what? Just real quick, speaking of that, it's like short people always tell themselves, "At least I live longer."
that's great. How
Yeah,
much time do I have?
I may not get all the chicks, but at least I live longer.
Yeah,
So
it's
see,
like
so they're
dog.
out there
That
dating
big dog. He's
it's
he's
the
not gonna
long
leave
game,
you.
right? By the time they're 90, now they'll pick up all the girls, right? Because all the guys are gone.
It'd be like Cocoon with the walker. Hey, come here.
Hey,
You want some
it's
bingo?
last man standing, baby. This is how it
All
is.
right, FOMO, dude. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Love it.
I'll
Talk
talk
to you
to
later.
you later.
There can be only one.